The Senate will come to order. Senator Merrifield.
Members and guests, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Majors, please call the roll.
Senators Aguilar,
Excused.
Baumgartner, Carroll, Cook, Crowder, Donovan, Garcia, Grantham, Guzman, Heath, Hill, Hodge, Holbert,
Excused.
John, Johnston,
Excused.
Jones, Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lundberg, Marble, Martinez Humenic, Merrifield, Neville, Newell, Roberts, Scheffel, Scott, Sonnenberg, Stedman, Tate, Todd, Ulibarri, Woods, Holbert, Aguilar, Johnston. Mr. President.
Here, with 35 present, 0 absent, 0 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the journal from Tuesday, February 23, be dispensed with and the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is approved and the journal is adopted. Reports of committees of reference.
February 23, 2016, Committee on Transportation, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends following Senate Bill 122 be amended as follows and as amended for the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 23, 2016, Mr. President, the Committee on Transportation has added consideration as at a hearing on the following appointments, recommends the appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Members of the Colorado Aeronautical Board for a term expired December 19, 2018, William L. Thompson of Colorado Springs, Colorado, serves as a member from the Eastern Slope and who represents local governments which operate airports, reappointed for a term expiring December 19, 2019. Jeffrey Scott Forrest of Littleton, Colorado, serves as a member from the Eastern Slope and who represents local governments which operate airports, reappointed. February 23, 2016, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends following Senate Bill 99 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 23, 2016, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends following Senate Bill 118 be postponed indefinitely. February 23, 2016, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1139 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee on Legislative Counsel with favorable recommendation. February 23, 2016, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1086 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 23, 2016, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1125 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. February 23, 2016, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1038 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. February 23, 2016, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1028 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar.
Senate Services.
February 24, 2016, correctly gross, Senate Bill 7 and 125, correctly reading gross, Senate Bill 1748 and 110, correctly revised, House Bill 1008, 1041, 1049, 1081, and 1095, correctly re-revised, House Bill 1240, correctly enrolled, Senate Bills 4, 22, 50, and Senator Memorial 4.
Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to the bills on the third reading of bills, consent calendar?
House Bill 1041 by Representative Lepsog and Senator Holberg concerning the removal of unreasonably impracticable financial requirements applicable to marijuana businesses that are required to be licensed. House Bill 1049 by Representative Lee and Senator Sheffel and Hill concerning an escrow account held by a depository institution on behalf of an issuer of an interstate offering of securities. House Bill 1081 by Representatives Ransom and Esgar and Senators Lemberg and Newell concerning removing obsolete reporting provisions in the Title 25.5 of the Colorado Revised Statutes.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I move that the Senate adopt all the bills listed on the third reading of bills for final passage consent calendar, which includes three bills: House Bill 1041, House Bill 1049, and House Bill 1081.
You have heard the motion. Is there further discussion on any of the bills on the third reading of the bills consent calendar? Seeing none, are there any no votes on any of the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar? With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1041 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Baumgardner, Senator Woods, Senator Stedman, Senator Neville, Senator Scott, Senator Hill, Mr. Majority Leader, picking up steam, Senator Kafalis, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Lundberg, Senator Marble, Senator John, please add the President. With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 0 excused, House Bill 1049 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Holbert, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Scott, Senator Lundberg, Senator Tate, Senator Woods, Senator Cook, Senator Neville, Senator Marble, Senator Grantham, Senator Lambert, Senator Kafalis, Senator Martinez-Humenick, With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1081 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Baumgardner, Senator Aguilar, Senator Lambert, Senator Scott, Minority Leader Guzman, Majority Leader Scheffel, Senator Cook, Senator Grantham, Senator Holbert, Senator John, Senator Heath, Senator Marble, Senator Tate, Senator Todd, Senator Kafalis, Senator Garcia, Senator Woods, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Stedman, please have the President. Senator Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to be added as a co-sponsor on House Bill 16-1041.
And so it shall be. Third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 112?
Senate Bill 112 by Senator Tate and Representative Wiss concerning a modification of the required quantity of voter service in polling centers.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 16-112 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? Minority Leader Guzman, Senator John, Senator Hodge, Senator Donovan, Senator Heath, Senator Ulibarri, Senator Garcia, Senator Carroll, Senator Newell, Senator Stedman, Senator Kerr, Senator Jones, Senator Johnson, Senator Merrifield, Senator Aguilar, Senator Todd, Senator Kafalis, with 18 ayes, 17 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 112 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Scheffel, Senator Lundberg, Senator Woods, Senator Holbert, Senator Crowder, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Grantham, Senator Lambert, Senator Cook, Senator Roberts, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Marble, please have the President. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 7?
Senate Bill 7 by Senator Roberts, Representative Quorum concerning the establishment of multiplier in the renewable energy standard for electricity generated from certain types of biomass to provide an incentive to use materials located within areas that have a high risk of wildfire.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 7 on third reading and final passage, and if I might, I'd like to add a few words.
Please.
Thank you. Colleagues, yesterday after second reading, I received an email, and I think it really speaks to the power of Senate Bill 7. I couldn't say it any better than this constituent who comes from our good senator from Vail District. So if I might, I just wanted to share these thoughts with you. The constituent says, I've reviewed the Conservation Colorado letter and can offer the following additional thoughts. We, which is the only biomass energy operation in Colorado to date, we believe that there is continuing interest and demand from various Colorado utilities and REAs in accessing bioenergy. While reducing or eliminating the multiplier for solar or wind may be a timely argument, now that those renewables have reached a higher stage of development, at least in part thanks to the existence of the multiplier and other incentives, biomass has never enjoyed such incentives and has not developed in Colorado. Even today, biomass only accounts for some 13 megawatts of power generation, all from the single industrial bioenergy plant in existence, Eagle Valley Clean Energy. However, even with the existence of this one facility alone, 100,000 or more tons of hazardous fuel each year can be safely disposed of and put to beneficial use. Furthermore, the Forest Service is better able to accomplish its purpose of protecting and making safer our valued forests and water supply, and many local sawmills are benefiting from a safe and economic way to dispose of their waste product. While incentives to solar and wind may have created many jobs, they were largely short-term construction jobs, and the ongoing operations and maintenance of those facilities employs very few persons, while bioenergy plants require a full industrial staffing contingency 24/7, 365 days a year for many decades to come. The Eagle Valley facility, directly at the plant and indirectly through forest operations, ensures full-time employment for upwards of 50 people in rural communities. The single biomass facility in Colorado is a drop in the bucket for meeting the demand of bioenergy and forest and water preservation, but it is a proven and effective first step. If it is true that a multiplier for biomass will not be effective, then the market will prove that out and no harm from trying. If your bill does lead to increased bioenergy production and forest treatments in Colorado, as we believe it will, everyone will benefit measurably. Colleagues, I just bring this up because this bill to me and to many others, it hits on public safety, forest health, watershed protection, jobs in rural Colorado. It is carbon negative because of the biochar aspect to it. I'm just pleading that we stop talking about the problems of the threats across our state to our forests, our watersheds. Please vote for Senate Bill 7. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? Senator Kerr? Minority Leader Guzman? Senator Heath? Senator Carroll? Senator Ulibarri? Senator Johnston? Senator Stedman? Senator Garcia? Senator Merrifield? Senator Jones? Senator Aguilar? With 24 ayes, 11 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 7 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Mr. Majority Leader, Senator Cook, Senator Marble, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Crowder, Senator Scott, Senator Grantham, Senator Lambert, Senator Holbert, Senator Tate, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Lundberg, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Neville, Senator Woods, Senator John, Senator Donovan, please add the President. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1008?
House Bill 1008 by Representatives Winter, Becker, Jennings, Senators Cook, and Heath concerning authorization for the Department of Transportation to designate an area on a roadway not otherwise lane for traffic for use by commercial vehicles designed to transport 16 passengers or more that are operated by a governmental entity or government-owned business that transports the general public or by a contractor on behalf of such an entity or government-owned business.
Senator Heath,
Thank you, Mr. President. We are pleased to move House Bill 1008 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? Senator Baumgardner, Senator Marble, Senator Tate, Senator Woods, Senator Neville, Senator Holbert, Senator Hill, Senator Lambert, Senator Sonnenberg, with 26 ayes, 9 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1008 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Carroll, Senator Ulibarri, Senator Todd, Senator Jones, Senator Kerr, Minority Leader Guzman, Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1095?
House Bill 1095 by Representative McCain and Senator Crowder concerning health insurance coverage for early refills of prescription eye drops.
Senator Crowder,
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1095 forward and ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1095 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Mr. Majority Leader, Senator Aguilar, Senator Kafalis, Senator Newell, Senator Todd, Minority Leader Guzman, Senator Jones, Senator Heath, Senator Merrifield, Senator Grantham, Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 125?
Senate Bill 125 by Senator Holbert and Representative Kraft-Tharp concerning the governance of credit unions in connection therewith authorizing the appointment of an audit committee in lieu of a supervisory committee and allowing the reasonable compensation of a director for his or her service to the credit union.
Senator Holbert,
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 125 on third reading and final passage. Ask for an aye vote.
is there further discussion? With 30 ayes, 5 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 125 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Woods, Majority Leader Scheffel, Senator Kerr, Senator John, Senator Scott, Senator Grantham, Senator Lambert, General orders, second reading of bills. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of General Order, second reading of bills calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The aye has it. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of General Orders, second reading of bills. Senator Roberts will take the chair.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Groundhog Day, Day 4, I move Senate Bill 34 and ask for a yes vote.
Any further discussion? Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, colleagues, and thank you for your patience. When we last left off in the last chapter of this serial drama, we were asking for a new fiscal note on a crime that has now been elevated to a Class 3 felony. And we did get the new fiscal note on our desks, and I just wanted to go over a little bit with you what the fiscal note says, because if you'll recall, I think it was Chapter 2 of our serial drama, we were proposing to make this a Class 5 felony. But today, as the bill stands before you, you have a Class 3 felony being created. And obviously, when you're talking felonies, you're talking potential time in the Department of Corrections and a state fiscal impact. So I asked for the bill to be laid over yesterday so we could prepare a new fiscal note under the Senate rules, and that was delivered to everyone's desk today. And you'll see that even though what we're doing with Senate Bill 34 is creating something that we're calling a new Class 3 felony, it doesn't drive a fiscal impact to the Department of Corrections. And I think that's very telling when you consider the merits of this legislation. I also want to point out at the bottom of the first page of the fiscal note a section called Comparable Crime. This is something that was a CCJJ recommendation, actually. The Commission on Criminal and Juvenile Justice said we should include in our fiscal note process a way for us to flag the creation of boutique crimes, things that are already criminal, but we're giving them a special niche, boutique, new name, as is the case with this law. And you'll see that the comparable crime section of our fiscal note flags for us that, yes, this conduct is already criminal. And in fact, it's already criminal, and the changes in Senate Bill 34 won't drive any changes in our corrections budget. There's some other language in the fiscal note I'll just want to point out to you. I'm at the bottom of page 2 now. The fiscal note assumes most cases involving tampering with human remains are being charged under current law, again, as our comparable crime section tells us. The fiscal note goes on to assume, however, that individuals charged with tampering with physical evidence related to the commission of serious crimes like murder are also being charged with other serious offenses. That's why what we're accomplishing through this bill has no impact on the Department of Corrections budget. Just thought I'd point those things out for you. One of the things that is very true for the longer you've been around this building, if you ever want to figure out what's really going on with the bill, read the fiscal note. And when you see that for all of the changes and all of the deck chairs that are being rearranged, there's no fiscal impact to the state, it speaks to the import of the legislation.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 34. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 80?
Senate Bill 80 by Senator Newell concerning secured marijuana cultivation requirements.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I move Senate Bill 80, which addresses the issue of Colorado currently having the highest use of rates of marijuana among youth in the country. And children are routinely accessing marijuana, which is grown in unregulated private home operations. There is no standard in place requiring the private non-industry medical marijuana grows to be in a locked and enclosed space. In 2014, we had House Bill 1122, which came out unanimously from both chambers, with the exception of one excused. And the problem, though, is that there is no standard in the medical marijuana. We've put it in the recreational marijuana. This has resulted in a large amount of marijuana available to children and ending up in middle and high schools throughout Colorado. And this would apply then so that we would have one standard. The kids don't know a difference between a medical marijuana plant and a recreational plant. So we just want to make sure that we remain true to the intentions behind both Amendment 20 and Amendment 64, which were to make sure that kids didn't have access. It would require a resident growing medical marijuana to ensure the grow site is in an enclosed and locked space. If a person is under 21 years of age living at the residence or visiting the residence, unless we have an amendment that I will propose in just a second that addresses those who are registered marijuana card carriers that are between the ages of 18 and 21, making the exception for them. So it cleans up House Bill 1122, the provisions to keep legal marijuana from underage persons, and it cleans up the Senate Bill 2013-283 that was from the Joint Select Committee on Omnibus Marijuana Bill. It establishes a single standard upon which all of the private non-industry growers of marijuana would comply, and creates clear guidance to all of those growers as to the responsible way in which marijuana grow operations are to be conducted. It provides law enforcement with a single standard, so it makes it more clear for them and also more clear for the growers. And it creates a single standard upon which to investigate community complaints, because one of the issues that is happening is we've got municipalities from across the state receiving complaints on this, and this would provide one standard. And then lastly, it reinforces the community and quality of life standards for neighborhood members who are not engaged in the growing of marijuana. With that, Madam Chair, I have
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read Amendment L004?
Amendment L004 to Senate Bill 80 by Senator Newell, amendment per bill, page 2, strike lines 6 through 8.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment 4 to Senate Bill 80. And members, this is something that I worked on with my colleague from the city of Aurora, and we worked on it just yesterday, and she, being an attorney, helped with some more artful language that will help, and I'm going to allow her to explain, Madam Chair.
Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, members, if you look at the original language of Senate Bill 80, I had some concerns about the original version of this bill, and specifically current law under 1818-406-3B sub 1 removed an exception to a crime. So the posture we were in is it removed an exception to a crime if a person is lawfully cultivating medical marijuana, basically pursuant to the Constitution. I didn't want any argument of any case where by removing an exception to a crime where you could be seen as allowing the criminalization of a person who's otherwise following the state constitution for medical marijuana. So given that the stated purpose of the bill was really to do parallel regulation about cultivation and fencing, what L004 does that I liked better is it is explicit about it unstrikes the other language. So nobody following the Constitution is going to be convicted of a crime. That part's changed. But instead, it rewrites directly both the parallel enclosure rules, but with another important exception that a constitutionally legal medical marijuana patient may be under the age of 18. And that under 18 medical marijuana patient needs to be explicitly contemplated differently than the normal age 21 rules that we might have for recreation because it is rooted in medical marijuana on a constitutionally protected right. So I support L004 because I think it protects people who are acting in compliance with Colorado's Constitution. I think it achieves the parallel enforcement mechanisms that the sponsor's goal is, and it respects the constitutional rights of a medical patient under the age of 18. And so it comes at it a different way, but I think achieves the goal, and would support L004.
Is there any further discussion of L004? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L004. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. There is another amendment. Mr. Majors, would you please read Amendment L003?
Amendment L003, Senate Bill 80 by Senator Newell, amend printed bill page 2, line 3, strike B and substitute B and...
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment 003. And members, this is the one that I put on your desks either yesterday or the day before. We wanted to make sure that we did have exemptions for those youth who are 18 to 21 who are registered marijuana card holders. And so that's what this does in two places in the bill. And then it also, this came up in committee as a potential concern because right now there are people who are mandatory reporters in our communities, and we wanted to make sure that that there were no child protective services calls due to just a grow. So it says if a person is lawfully cultivating medical marijuana pursuant to the authority granted in Section 14 of Article 20 of the state constitution, that fact alone is not sufficient to require a referral to child protection services. And so I ask for your support on Amendment 3.
Is there any further discussion on L003? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L003. All in favor? Oh, Senator Crowder, did you want to speak to L003? Okay, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious about this one point on this. What this says, unless a person under 21 years of age has a valid medical card. What in this, I guess what I'm using in my imagination, but let's say a person had a card and that card expired and he had not yet got another one. Does that also, even though he's not valid at that point, is that a fine line in this that we need to look at?
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's a great question, Senator. I would assume that they would look at that on an individual basis, and if that person has intentions of getting another card at the time of, is it a day expired, is it a year expired, or whatever? So I would assume that that would be done on an individual basis.
Is there any further discussion of L003? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption.
The amendment.
Okay. I'm going to assume there is no further discussion of L003, so the motion before the body is the adoption of L003. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. L003 is adopted. Senator Newell, any further
Thank you, Madam Chair.
amendments, discussion? Senator Newell, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to just add that in those of us who were here in 2014, we, well, actually, in the last few years, obviously, we've done a lot of work on making sure that there are single standards as much as possible when it comes to recreational and marijuana, medical marijuana. And so this would do that. And then I just ask for an aye vote.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Listened to a lot of testimony related to marijuana over my 1 year down here. It's a very complicated issue because it's a drug of great benefit, a drug of detriment, a crop, a raw material, a refined product. And so I struggled with this in committee, and I voted the bill here to second reading. One thing that struck me and sometimes I can be reactionary about stuff. One thing that struck me was that in testimony, the marijuana proponents advocated that there is no harm to marijuana. I think the word completely harmless was the term that they used. And like last year, there seems to be an effort to almost like undermine the research of some of our most highly skilled medical professionals, noting that the AMA and other physician groups have been very vocal in the last many months about doing a better job pointing out where marijuana is a detriment, and that is specifically to children in utero, fetuses, and also, the developing brains of children. I think we also can observe in Colorado a macroeconomy where marijuana is much more available to high schoolers. And I think based on the medical research and reports have been presented to me, that is a category of at-risk individuals. So I just think that one of the general defenses, or I should say one of the general arguments of the opponents of the bill was that marijuana is harmless. And I just don't agree with that. I also want to observe that there is something kind of interesting to me that depending on the distribution channel of this product, that we have different standards. I don't know if the bill here really, think others may testify to their belief of the efficacy of the bill. I think there is something to truing that up, and we heard a lot of testimony from county and local government as well as law enforcement about pairing up this marijuana supervision regime. Lastly, I just also want to observe that marijuana is different, and I've heard this over the last year. Marijuana is, how come we don't treat it just like alcohol? It's completely harmless. Or there's other arguments. If you're not, how come you're not doing something about alcohol or opiates in the medicine cabinet at home? How come you're not locking that up? I would just observe that each case is different. This is a very unique product. Like I said, it's both raw material, recreational drug, refined product that's highly beneficial to many people in our society. I would just encourage attention to the discussion, scrutiny of the bill, kind of a cogent reasoning of the fact that there are risks to youth and developing brains associated with this drug, while at the same time it does provide great benefit to many of our citizens. And notwithstanding all that, there is also, as we know, in the Colorado Constitution, a right for citizens to have marijuana in some form or fashion. So again, thank you for your consideration of this bill.
Senator Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like the previous speaker, I also heard this bill in committee and supported it then, and I'm going to support it now. I'm sure you've been to a number of presentations like I have over the last couple of years, and this fact just keeps hitting me right between the eyes that Colorado currently has the highest use rates of marijuana among youth in the whole country. And the previous speaker alluded to that as well. This is a matter of grave concern. I know we all made a decision as citizens of this state to legalize first medical marijuana and then recreational marijuana. We're obviously living with that. But the consequences of that is clearly that we have a high use rate among youth in this country. So obviously that's a matter of grave concern. I too believe that if we're going to have a standard for recreational marijuana in terms of growth of it being grown in homes where youth are present, that it only makes sense to have the same standard for medical marijuana as we do for recreational marijuana, which this bill does. I think this is only a matter of common sense and would ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 80? Senator Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of Senate Bill 80. I agree. We do need one single standard when dealing with medical or recreational. You can't grow a plant and say this is a medical marijuana plant and this one is a recreational plant. There's no difference. They're the same plant. So I believe we do need one standard to regulate both under the Constitution. You know, children routinely, and I agree with this, have access to medical marijuana. And let me tell you about a story and one reason why I'm supporting it. Several years ago, before recreational marijuana was legalized, 2 fourth graders in Greeley brought marijuana to their school to give to other fourth graders at the school. And when they were confronted by the administration, they said, hey, it's legal. We got it from our grandparents. It was on their dresser. And they brought medical marijuana to school with them because it wasn't locked up. So I think we need to have one standard to codify what was voted on in this building, in this chambers 2 years ago, where it was unanimous to make marijuana locked up that was for recreation. Let's do the same for medical.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Martinez-Humanic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be supporting this. In Adams County, we have a huge issue and problem with this, and I was very grateful that Senator Newell actually brought this along into the chamber, and I've had Adams County as well as Thornton police officers who served on the North Metro Drug Task Force very involved in the process with this bill. So I would urge your support on this. This is a start. We're going to still probably have some issues, but we need to work on these as they come. And that has been the case every year since marijuana was actually approved by our voters. So I would urge an aye vote on this bill.
Any further discussion? Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I am going to be supportive of this also, but I think there's one thing that's missing, and that's the technical experience or the technical knowledge of this marijuana. You know, we've been at this for several years, and we still don't know exactly how it affects. So I was very supportive of CSU and Pueblo coming out with the program to kind of study this, to come up with exactly the breakdown of marijuana today. Because the reality is, when this came out in the 60s, it's a whole different world now. So I think we, I'm going to support this, but I still think we need more knowledge about marijuana and exactly how it affects different age groups, different demographics of the state and whatnot. But I think this is a start. But I think we're kind of shooting in the dark on a lot of this stuff because we don't have that knowledge. But anyway, thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay, Senator, any further discussion? Senator? Okay. Senator Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Folks, we heard this in committee, and I think all of us in committee agreed unanimously the idea that we need to make sure that we protect our children from the harms of a drug that they're not supposed to be involved with. However, there are some issues that came up too. We saw pictures of marijuana growing, and that supposedly was a threat. And this was marijuana that was growing on private property. And of course, the question we asked ourselves is what is the right of a private property owner? And I want you to think about this in a couple of different areas. We talked about the threat of drug abuse. Well, let's take a look at the threat of opioid abuse. It's the #1 killer in Colorado. It is our major drug problem in the state of Colorado right now. And when we talk about alcohol abuse, we talk about the issue of fetal problems with marijuana, but fetal alcohol syndrome is a tremendous threat in the state of Colorado, and it's a tremendous problem. And then we talk about the use of law, the proper use of law over medical and also over recreational marijuana. Well, recreational marijuana is not what's in question here. It is medical marijuana. But I want to ask you, is it the proper use of law to single out one area and put further restrictions on it when we haven't taken a look at opioids that are in your medicine cabinet that get taken to school by students on a regular basis? It's a big problem. And also alcohol. And my question here is from a common sense standpoint, at what point do we require people to be responsible for their own property, but also at what point do we require people to be responsible for breaking the law and actually entering that area and actually making sure that we are enforcing the law there too? It seems like we're trying to make criminals out of people that are not criminals currently, and we're actually trying to give cover to people that have actually entered criminal behavior because maybe it's kind of tough to track those folks down. I don't think this is the proper answer when we take a look at what we're trying to do. And I would this may not be a huge difference maker, but I want you to take a look at it and make sure that what we're doing actually makes sense in the long term. And of course, just a reminder, opioid abuse and alcohol abuse are definitely larger issues in the state of Colorado.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to respond to that. This is not that bill. Absolutely, alcohol is a problem. Absolutely, opioids are a problem. In fact, I've done legislation on that over my tenure here. This is not that bill. This is, and we have a single subject requirement in this state. So and I did want to make sure that people knew who all is in support of this. Colorado Municipal League, Colorado Counties, Inc., Colorado Association of Chiefs of Police, Colorado Drug Investigators Association, Children's Hospital, Illuminate Colorado, which is it's a collaborative partnership between Prevent Child Abuse Colorado, the Colorado Alliance for Drug Endangered Children, and NOFAS of Colorado, and then Smart Colorado and Kemp Foundation. They are all in support of this, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 80. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 16?
Senate Bill 16 by Senator Stedman and Cabinet Representatives Holding Horse and Lawrence concerning the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District and in connection therewith amending the ballot question concerning the extension of the district to be submitted to the voters on modifying statutory provisions concerning the administration of the district.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 16. There are no committee reports.
Okay, to the bill.
Thank you. Colleagues, Senate Bill 16 concerns the reauthorization of the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District. And this is something that voters in the 7-county metropolitan area have done twice before, and this will be the third reauthorization. Should this bill succeed and should the district choose to refer the reauthorization question to the ballot. And I would ask for your support for this bill this morning and for a ballot question that this bill will give rise to, that voters in the 7-county metropolitan area will be voting on this summer, or this November rather. I want to talk a little bit about the district, and I want to introduce you to my friend Popsicle the polar bear. This is the official mascot of the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District. The district was created by the legislature in 1988, and the voters approved imposing a 0.1% sales tax here in the 7-county metro area to support scientific, cultural, and arts organizations. Voters overwhelmingly approved the sales tax, and voters have twice overwhelmingly reauthorized the sales tax, and it's time to do it again. The district is roughly composed of the 7 counties in the metro area. There are portions of Douglas County that are excluded. The district has a board that is drawn from the 7 counties and appointed by their commissioners or the city and county of Denver and Broomfield's councils. There are also gubernatorial appointments to the board. The board distributes the sales tax revenue to arts and culture organizations across the metro area according to a formula that we have in statute. The formula involves 3 tiers of large organizations, medium-sized organizations, and small organizations in the 3rd tier that are actually funded at the county level. A portion of district revenues are redistributed back to each of the 7 counties, and each of the 7 counties has a county cultural council that makes grants to arts organizations in their communities. So there's a strong component of local control when you get down to the community level and the small organizations that are funded in Tier 3. This year, as we prepare to go to the ballot to reauthorize the SCFD district, there was a lengthy process to prepare and to make recommendations that form the basis of Senate Bill 16. A task force was formed, subcommittees worked for months, in fact over a year, on formulating the recommendations in Senate Bill 16, and they wanted to respond to certain challenges and certain pressures that the district is facing because of its growth and, quite frankly, because of its success. There has been a proliferation of community nonprofit organizations that are providing services and programming in the arts and culture and scientific arenas that have produced quite a bit of competition in the 2nd and 3rd tiers of funding. And as a result, there's been a lot of compression, a lot of competition for funds, and this is something the task force really spent a lot of time studying as they made recommendations for what should a new and improved SCFD look like for its next reauthorization period. In committee, I described the pressures that the task force was trying to overcome as saying that the district has been a victim of its own success. We have invested taxpayer funds into providing a vibrant and thriving arts and culture organizations across the metro area. And as a result, the nonprofit arts, culture, and scientific community is flourishing. And there are more and more groups all the time competing for the tax funds that the sales tax generates. Because of that, Senate Bill 16 will change the funding formula to drive more of the resources down to the lower Tier 2 and Tier 3 groups in the SCFD structure. In fact, over the course of the next 12-year reauthorization period, the formula changes in Senate Bill 16 will result in a combined $37 million over the next 12 years of reauthorization being shifted away from the large Tier 1 organizations down into Tier 2 and into Tier 3. This is going to help with some of those pressures that the success of the district has created because there is such growth and such vibrancy in our arts and culture community. This SCFD is something that's envied by metropolitan areas across the country. It's a way we have found a mechanism to ensure regional collaboration in supporting arts and culture. And we don't do this just because it makes for good neighbors between the 7 counties and the district. We also do it because we know that investment in arts and culture, our investment in our economy, investment in our quality of life, it creates jobs, it creates other economic activity and other tax income. Each year, the Colorado Business Committee for the Arts performs an economic activity study to look at what the SCFD means to the Denver metropolitan region. And I want to just really quickly give some of their findings based upon data for the calendar year 2013, the most recent year they've completed the study. They found a total of $1.85 billion in economic activity generated by the SCFD. Direct economic impact of $520.8 million. Over 14 million paid ticket attendees to SCFD-funded programming. The creation of, and the support of over 10,200 jobs. Volunteerism, giving to the arts, outreach to school students and programming to supplement what happens in public schools, field trips for kids, free days at the zoo and the museums, the botanic gardens. All of these things that SCFD makes possible enrich our lives here in the metro area, and that's why I'm an enthusiastic supporter of seeing this go back to voters this year for reauthorization. In the last election when SCFD was on the ballot, it was the year 2004, and the measure passed 2-1, over 65% of the vote. This is wildly popular, it's been wildly successful, and it's time to do it again. That's why I would ask for your yes vote on Senate Bill 16.
President Cadman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I appreciate joining my distinguished colleague from just a few blocks away in supporting this bill and sponsoring this bill. As you heard, it's been decades in the making, and that is actually decades of success, voted for and supported overwhelmingly in the 7 counties twice, and now up for reauthorization. That's a lot of history, that's a lot of success, that's a lot of collaboration, especially in a place that doesn't always see such collaboration. With the 7 counties, that's to their own benefit, it's with their own taxes, but I think the unique part about this is that we all actually generate a benefit from this, which was one of the reasons that I was interested in joining in the support of the bill at the outset. It has a history of overwhelming support. You heard my colleague mention the word envied. And I think that is a sentiment that has been echoed by others across the state, wishing they could put something similar in place to support their own efforts in their own counties, in their own cities, and in their own regions. And frankly, across the country, this is a model that has served that others are seeking to emulate. It's transparent, it's accountable, it honors the Taxpayer Bill of Rights because the Constitution says ask the voters. It asked the voters, and the voters have overwhelmingly decided to support this. Nearly 300 arts and cultural entities are deriving a benefit of this, and many of them become icons in their communities, icons in their cities. Some of them, I'm sure we would agree, become icons for Colorado, historic and national in significance as well, indicating that they also become national and international icons, a draw for tourism, and increased cultural exchanges and developments in the arts. I think the dollars are easy to quantify. They are growing. My colleague mentioned the increased demands on those dollars, and that's because of the popularity of it and the success of what those dollars invest in. He mentioned the current economic impact, but that same study provides for the future economic impact as the anticipated growth, and it is significant. I won't bother you with all the details, but it is certainly expected to be much more successful and powerful in the future. I would submit that the benefits of this are certainly infinite, even though the dollars are finite. One of the things I think we should do is say thank you to those who are supporting these efforts because we all benefit from them. I added up the list of the nearly 300 of these. I've been to only around 10% of them, but I'm really glad they're there, and frankly, my family is really glad they're there, and I know many of your families are as well. Would ask for your support and appreciate my colleagues' decades of work on this and letting me chime in.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, members, I'm going to vote my district on this. Remember Lois Talktrop telling us we should vote our district? I'm going to vote my district, and I'm going to ask for a no vote today. Let me talk about the process, the fairness, and some disturbing things I heard along the way. First of all, on the process, it sounds very elaborate. They did all these things, 300 responses to stakeholder surveys, 330 individual volunteers, and participated in one of the or more phases. Members, we get this much participation in 2 days. I want you to think about your mailbox this morning or last night or the day before. We get this kind of participation all the time. It's good, but it's nothing to crow about in my mind. Also, let's talk in the process part of this and how it worked. This is from a person who was a Tier 3 organization. So you have Tier 1, which are the big facilities in Denver, Tier 2, which are bigger facilities, mostly in Denver, and Tier 3 are throughout the metro area. This person represented the Tier 3 organizations. And to this process issue, during the 4 years of reauthorization process, the first 3 years were spent discussing non-reauthorization matters. All reauthorization conversations were tabled. They were tabled, especially percentages were left to the 5 meetings that the task force held. This severely limited time for public debate. The board presentation and responses also limited debate. There was also a serious intimidation factor for Tier 3 suffer from. It really limits their ability to challenge those in power. The task force was given a mandate of only incremental change. This task force was told, don't look at what's fair. They said, look what can be incrementally changed. And the whole conversation when I talked to lobbyists about this is, look how much more you have. It wasn't about what's fair in the first place. This thing about incremental change was used to counter the making of any significant change. This mandate restricted and inhibited the task force from really examining the needs of the district. Percentages were not decided based on needs analysis presented. We basically started conversation from the starting point of Tier 1s, what they were willing to give. Stakeholders were arbitrarily chosen without input from the field, not for their ability to articulate a position or represent an interest, although some clearly did. I agreed to participate because I felt that without my participation, there would be vulnerable to criticism that we had our chance. The Tier 3 representatives voted against the resolutions. So that's how it worked. You weren't supposed to make big changes because the big guys are doing well. Now, I knew Popsicle the polar bear as a youth. When this all started, I remember very well Popsicle being the first really cool yard sign out there. And at the time, the big institutions in Denver were really struggling. They needed help. They no longer are in that position. They're doing quite well, thank you. And who's struggling are Tier 3 organizations. Let's talk about the growth. What's happened since 1990? Tier 1s had 4 organizations, Tier 2, 6, Tier 3 had 110. Now there are 5 Tier 1s, 28 Tier 2s, and 242 Tier 3s. So Tier 3s went from 110 to 242. Let's talk about attendance. 55% in 1990 were SCF attendees, and Tier 3 served 9% of those. Now they serve 33%. They serve a third of the people, less than 10% before, a third of the people. I'm doing it all, man. Here's my favorite part, though. You got a graph on your table, or you got a set of graphs that were put on your desk? Anybody who's listening? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? Go to page 2. Look at the bottom graph. SCFD measures of service and attendance. Look at 2013. The blue wedge there is Tier 1, orange is Tier 2, Tier 3 is the gray. Tier 3 gets a third of the attendance, but 15% of the money. So they have a third of the attendance and they get 15% of the money, while tier 1 takes the lion's share. But if you are paying any attention at all and you're from a suburban district, you'll really, really want to look at this graph on the front page. It's this one right here. What you will see there is if you're in Adams, Arapahoe, Boulder, Broomfield, Douglas, or Jefferson County, you are sending money to Denver in a big way. Now, our constituents sometimes drive into Denver to go to the Natural History Museum or whatever. We do that. But by far and away, our participation is at the local level. My county, we send in 10% of the money. We get about 2% of the money back. And our attendance is about 11%. Now, we scream bloody murder when this happens to us in Washington, D.C., and we don't get our money back. That's exactly what's happening here. In fact, it's very stark. If you'll see where all the money goes, it goes to Denver. If you're from a suburban district, your people aren't being helped. For me, I'm going to vote my district on this. Where'd I go? Finally, I want to talk about some disturbing things I heard along the way. The first is, it always started with where we were and how little money the Tier 3s got. Hey, you got more, as if that's a good deal, instead of talking about what's fair to taxpayers. I mean, these are our taxpayers. Second thing is say, hey, you don't, in Tier 3, they don't have to have certified counts. And I started thinking about that, and it made me realize that they basically were saying that people in Tier 3 organizations couldn't count very well. I found that insulting. And then the thing that bothered me most, I got some letters from in my district, and part of their rationale was, if we fight over this, it won't pass. Anybody know what it passed by last time it was reauthorized? I heard 66%. That argument is misleading, disingenuous, and too bad it was used, because it seemed to have influenced people in my district. I really enjoyed getting this on my desk with all the resolutions that look all the same. It's like the steamroller that this bill is, it seems to be to me. They cut down a bunch of trees that fix CO2 and put a polar bear on the cover. I think if you were from the zoo, you might say, or Natural History Museum, you might say, this is a really bad idea to waste a lot of paper like this. So, in closing, the process was stilted towards Tier 1 and Tier 2. It's not fairly distributed. In fact, it's starkly not so. Suburban people get the short end of the stick on this one. And it's disturbing some of the tactics that were used to get this thing where it is today. So, members, I know a lot of you people on the bill, I can count. But I ask you to vote your district today. I'm going to vote my district. All you got to do is look at that one graph, and you will see how you are subsidizing facilities in Denver at the expense of local projects in your county. Thank you.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to see how many of you are listening and paying attention to this very important subject. All right. I have you for that far. We should.
No, I'm amused. Senator Merrifield, please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was actually for once speechless from the. My good colleague that just spoke really expressed a lot of the concerns that I have, and as I hope I demonstrated, I am very supportive of the arts. In fact, my name is on this bill, and I am very envious, being from Colorado Springs, of the SCFD. I would love, and since I see a number of my council members here, maybe we can get a concept that this is an idea we could pursue. So it's obvious, I think, to all of you how supportive you are of the arts, and I know how much all of us feel that it enriches the lives of not only of children but of adults. And I've used the opportunities here in the Denver area to visit many of the institutions that are funded by the SCFD. But some really serious concerns have been raised over the last few weeks about the funding system. A couple of things that my good colleague previously didn't mention were that the district's grown by 1 million residents since 1990, and that 80% of those new residents are in the outlying counties. And increasingly, the SCFD grantees are those in the outlying counties, yet Denver receives 82% of the funding. I think that's a significant misrepresentation of the effects. And the other 6 counties will receive less than 18%. And Denver collects approximately 29% of the total revenue, and the other counties contribute 71%. So my name's on the bill. I'm going to support it right now, but I think there's issues that we need to address as it goes through the system. So I hope you'll be watching that, and we come up finally with a bill that really addresses all the concerns that have been expressed. Thank you.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too am a big supporter of the arts. In fact, my first profession was as a singer and an actress in California, so I thoroughly get the arts, huge supporter of the arts. I have run creative arts legislation. However, with this particular bill, I am in support of reauthorizing SCFD and making sure that the voters get out for that in November. However, I would like to see an amendment that does reflect the voice of those of us who are in suburbia, who have those little arts organizations that really make a difference in our communities. And I'm sorry, Madam Chair, it's hard for me to hear myself.
Members, I need to ask you to keep your voices down. Senator Newell, please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just couldn't hear myself. So those small community organizations are the ones that help us in low-income areas, in the areas that are not able to afford to go to the theater in Denver. And I am grateful for the theater in Denver. I attend as much as I can afford it on my legislator salary, but I would like to see that an amendment goes on to shift the formula just a little bit so that the Tier 3 organizations are better represented. And just as an example of this, there was a student in Sheridan, in my district, and he went off to college, got a music degree, came back and then moved to, I believe it's North Glen now, where he lives. And he has this little tiny nonprofit organization that helps with getting youth and children into music because, of course, we don't have as much of the arts in the public education system now. So he's gone out and helped with that in his own community. Those are the kinds of organizations that we want to support so that we have the arts in all of our communities. So with that, I could go on with some of the stats that have been already covered, but I won't. I will just say that one thing, which is that this underfunds the community-based organizations by not rectifying that funding shortfall because of the disproportionate growth that we have seen. The smaller organizations have really climbed in numbers, but the formula does not show that. So until that amendment gets on, I will be a no on the bill, and I am hoping others join me to show the House that we need to get this amendment on so that we all feel comfortable and have hopefully a unanimous vote out of this chamber the second time it comes around. Thank you, my colleague from Denver and from Colorado Springs. I do want to give a shout out to my colleague from Denver. because he was the one walking around with the big blue bear, the big polar bear. He was the one walking around with that, and has made a huge difference in the arts in Colorado. So I do want to thank the SCFD for the efforts that they have made in cultivating the arts in not only the Denver metro area, but throughout our state. And very grateful that we are going to be able to have this reauthorized this November. But for now, because of the amendment, I'm a no on the bill until that amendment comes on. Thank you.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will be voting my district, and I'm going to support this. You know, this, in my opinion, this is a simple exercise of the tier change or a formula change. And the reality is the board has come up with this, so I don't see a problem with it as it is written, but I will be supporting it. And I don't think I will be supporting any amendments to this bill. It looks like the 6 counties involved in this will have to do this when this bill sunsets, because the reality is that the only recourse we have is to change the structure of the tier, and that's it. But I don't believe that I understand the big hoopla about this, because I believe that it should be up to that board to make this decision and change that formula. But I will be a yes vote on this. Thank you.
Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I rise in support of Senate Bill 16, and some have asked, well, what about the underlying question of the tax? And I think this is a great opportunity for us to talk with constituents, people around the state, about Tabor and who the boss is. We have a lot of contention in this chamber or in the General Assembly about the application of Tabor. But I think in this case, it's a great reminder that we are not the boss, that the voters, the people out there in the state of Colorado, or at least within this district, are the ultimate decision makers. And one of the things that has helped me in achieving my position of support on this bill is to remind myself, and it was mentioned earlier that the last formula, I think, was approved by a vote of 66% of those people who voted. I think it's a fascinating discussion, a worthwhile discussion to have with constituents, people who are interested in how this body functions, to remind people that we do not have the authority to raise taxes or create taxes. We refer questions to the ballot, and the boss, our boss, each of our 35 districts, the boss in each of those districts comes down to a majority of voters. And this formula will go to the ballot, and the voters will answer the question, did we get this right or did we not? But I think, again, that it's good for us to remind the people we work for, our boss, that it's ultimately going to be their decision. And I hear very clearly in Senate District 30 that this is a formula that works for performing arts in the district that I represent. And when I hear from people that ask, well, why do we have a tax? Why do we even have this tax? Why are you talking about a new formula for this tax? The answer for me is very simple. Because the boss decided that we would have it. And the boss was the majority of people who voted within this district. And I asked for an aye vote on Senate Bill 16.
In a bipartisan way, I'm excited to see this conversation move. And I think it's incredibly important that we acknowledge that the metro area here is unique in that we have the Science Cultural Facilities District. And I know that we are the envy of many regional areas throughout the country because of this crucial investment that we make in the arts. At the same time, I want to just acknowledge that for me, there is a need to invest heavily in our Big Five groups, the Tier 1 groups, because they provide such an amazing experience, especially for our young people. Folks may know that in my Senate district, nearly 9 out of 10 of the students I represent live at or below the federal poverty line. So free admission to our large cultural institutions, whether it's the Denver Center for Performing Arts, the zoo, or the Museum of Nature and Science, or the Butterfly Pavilion, that access really opens up doors of opportunity for so many young students, especially those who live in poverty. And at the same time, I think it's really incredible to note that the Tier 3 organizations help to provide a sense of community and identity for the state. When we look at groups like El Centro Su Teatro, which does cultural education through theater and art, or we look at the smaller theater in Westminster, it is those smaller entities that really can define a community and the identity of space. I think that there needs to be a better balance between the funding mix with the Tier 3s and the Tier 1s. Both are incredibly invaluable. Both provide services that you can't find elsewhere, and they need our investment. So with that statement, I'm voting yes today with the hope that we see amendments that actually reflect the importance of the Tier 3s and the way that they help to form a sense of community and identity. And we'll look for those amendments. Unfortunately, if those amendments don't get on through this process, I will likely be a no vote at the
that I've heard from the City of Boulder, Boulder County Commissioners, City of Lyons, City of Nutterland, all have written to encourage me and us to support this bill. I've also heard from some of the Tier 3s in Boulder County that they have concerns and would like a slight adjustment, but clearly, overwhelmingly, my constituents that have contacted me have asked me to support the bill as is, so I will be voting yes, but I certainly recognize the concern that Tier 3s have, and maybe this will be adjusted in the other body, but as of now, I will support this bill because I think it's crucial that we extend the SCFD.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like I said earlier, Popsicle the polar bear is an old friend of mine. I knew him in his youth, or her in her youth, I can't tell. No, I got the right side. I appreciate what the senator from Boulder just said. I got some letters from Longmont like that too. And what I found when I got those letters is that they included something in there of, we want this to pass, so we ought to get together. I don't think anybody bothered to tell them that it passed by 66% and however it would be distributed. They do well. But one thing I realized I didn't do on my first time up here is talk about the funding proposal. I'm not asking for 33% based on attendance. I'm just asking for the 20% that people have been asking for. I'm hoping this is going to be a Cinderella story. You remember Cinderella? Didn't get their fair share, got the crumbs. It kind of feels like that. They get more than that. But right now they get 13.5%. This proposal says 14% you'll get, and it'll be up to 17% if we do well. Why wouldn't we go to 20%? Why wouldn't that be fair? And that's all I'm asking. It's not even the 33% based on attendance. It's just the 20%. So let's have a Cinderella story here. Let's treat Cinderella the same as everybody else in the family. Ask for a no vote.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to rise in support of Senate Bill 16. I signed on quite a while back. And I think one of the concerns that we oftentimes look at is it just one city? Is it just one area? This is 7 different regions that are really benefiting. And I know that I represent Aurora, and our Aurora Fox Theater is one of the recipients. I think one of the things that I want to rise in support of, and I think probably everyone in the chamber would agree, the value of arts, the value of the culture that it adds to a city, to a region, and to a state. And so when I kind of looked back over, and I was looking from my list of all the different groups that benefit, and I wasn't able to locate it, but I think one of the things we want to really focus on, this is 1 cent in sales tax on every $10 spent that goes to the district. And that money, $52 million in 2014, goes to organizations of all sizes in all 7 different districts and counties. Excuse me. The county cultural councils made funding decisions for the largest group of organizations. This is what draws people to our state. So when they come and visit, be it DCPA, the Denver Zoo, the Museum of Nature and Science, any and all of those are big attendee areas. And that is what really changes, I believe, the culture of our state. It provides many opportunities for our students to be able to come and go to the different venues and take advantage of that, be it field trips or some of the free days that have been provided for families to be able to attend. I think this is something that we need to be supportive of. We were very supportive of the Denver Broncos and winning the Super Bowl. We need to make sure that we're a balanced state, and culture and arts is that balance that provides the same kinds of entertainment and outlets for many people. So with that, I rise in support of Senate Bill 16 and urge an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate all of the interest and the discussion on the bill. Obviously, this is a pretty big, important matter here in the 7-county metro area, but I also want to suggest that it goes beyond the boundaries of the 7 counties, and this is really an important issue for our entire state, because we know the cultural institutions, the arts, the performances, the opportunities that the SCFD makes possible is one of the things that contributes to that overall quality of life in Colorado. It's one of the things that makes this an attractive destination for tourism and to support our tourism industry, that we have vibrant and thriving arts and culture and scientific institutions across the metropolitan area that are invested in by the SCFD tax. I want to, in conclusion, just really briefly explain a little bit of the procedure related to the district seeking reauthorization, because Senate Bill 16 enables the district to refer to voters all of these revisions and refinements to the SCFD formula. And if this bill passes, the district will be able to put more transparency, improved governance structure, and formula distribution changes in the ballot measure that goes to voters. If this bill fails, it does not stop the SCFD from going forward. If this bill fails, it does not keep this question off the ballot. Under current law, if we take no action this year, the Board of Directors of the taxing district has the authority to refer reauthorization to the ballot in the 7-county metro area and ask voters to renew the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District exactly as it is today without any of these changes. And so for those that are concerned about the funding distributions, for those that think that there are inequities or that the bill doesn't go far enough, if the bill fails, the amount of progress that is made towards addressing those inequities is zero. And so it's important that we pass this bill and let the district refer to its voters this November a question that includes a new, improved, refined scientific and cultural facilities district rather than simply reauthorizing the old. The improvements here have been something that a lot of folks have spent a lot of time talking about, and again, they are intended to address the fact that there has been incredible success, incredible growth in Tier 2 and Tier 3, and over the next 12 years of this reauthorization period, if voters say yes in November, and their track record suggests they're highly likely to say yes in November, this bill, with its new formula, will shift, again, over $37 million over the 12 years of the authorization period down away from the Tier 1 organizations to those in Tier 2 and Tier 3. That is helping address many of the concerns that you're hearing about. It's not going as far as everyone wishes. It isn't perfect. It is a product of a lot of compromise, a lot of people working together, ultimately for the benefit of the district, for the benefit of the metropolitan area, our quality of life, our ability to participate in arts and culture and have these things contribute to our economy, our workforce, and our Colorado way of life. It's important that we pass this bill, and I ask for your aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So I rise in support of Senate Bill 116. I think this is a good bill. I do have two issues that we heard on committee that were raised multiple times that I want to address, and one that I want to offer an amendment to, which will be forthcoming. What we heard from what was justifiably raised was what you have in these tiers is you have funding for large existing institutions, and you also have funding for small institutions that are growing. They are the startups of our arts and cultural community, and you want to make sure to give those startups fuel so they can grow. And so there are two things we need to call attention to for all of you who are partnering with your own counties. On these Tier 3 grants, a major concern we heard was the diversity of the organizations that receive funding under these grants. And under Tier 3 grants, that decision is the decision of your county. So your county gets a block grant for Tier 3s, and if they decide whether or not they want to give it to a startup that is doing Latino-focused Mexican art experiences for young people, or they decide to give it to your local symphony, that decision is made by the counties. And so there was, I think, some very valid concern from startup organizations representing communities of color who were saying it's much too hard for our organizations to get funded at the local level, and we have to really focus on working with our counties on that, because that is a county decision that is not in the statute for reauthorization. But the second thing that is addressed in this bill is you do want to make it more possible for these startup organizations serving communities that are underrepresented to get funding earlier. The old version allowed any nonprofit that had been in existence for 3 years to be funded. The current proposal changes that requirement to 5 years. So a local arts nonprofit that's trying to serve a community that doesn't feel like is being served has to be in existence for 5 full years before they can ever even apply for funding from the SCFD. I don't think we heard, and I raised this on committee, evidence that there are wildly irresponsible Tier 3 organizations that are getting funding after year 3 and wasting it. But instead, I think we do see that these young entrepreneurs, as all entrepreneurs know, those first years are the critical years to funding. And so if we want to make a public investment in these organizations, I think really reputable, accomplished, successful organizations with track records of success should be eligible for funding after 3 years without having to wait to a full 5. I do think that does help us get more of a grassroots organization up and running in a way that will serve your community. So the amendment that I had drafted right now, which we're now ready to put on the desk thanks to Owen's amazing fast work, is an amendment to do just that, to just return the standard in the current bill from 5 years and return it to the original structure, which was 3 years in existence before they would be eligible to apply for funds. I'd ask for an aye vote. So Madam Chair, yes, I will be quiet.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read L003?
Amendment L003, Senate Bill 16 by Senator Johnson, amend Permanent Bill page 24, line 1, strike 5 and substitute.
Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment 3.
Okay.
And Amendment 3 does just as I described. It changes the requirement for a grassroots organization to be in existence from 5 years to 3 years. 3 is the standard we've used in the last 20 years at SCFD. I think it still requires that an organization has a track record of success, but it doesn't extend too long a timeline where a startup organization could get support. So I'd ask for an aye vote on Amendment.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me just correct the record and say the district has a 27-year track record of success. Colleagues, I'm going to ask for a no vote on the amendment, but I want to explain to you the pros and cons of the amendment, because actually I think this is a close question, and I could go either way on this, actually. But I've made a commitment to carry the task force recommendations in the bill, and so I'll be voting no. But I want you to understand what Senator Johnston is proposing, because his amendment deals with when is a nonprofit organization eligible to apply for an SCFD grant. And under current law, they have to have been in existence for 3 years. Under Senate Bill 16, with the task force recommendations, that 3-year existence requirement is being increased to 5 years. And this is specific to the Tier 3 organizations, again, where there's been the greatest growth, the greatest proliferation of new arts and culture organizations serving communities across the district. And there is a lot of competition for those funds, and the counties are seeing their money getting spread thinner and thinner with all the applicants that are coming forward. And so one way of looking at this requirement for the number of years that the organization has been in existence is that it is, if you will, a barrier to entry. You've got to have a 5-year track record before you're eligible to apply for one of these grants. That is going to perhaps mitigate and slow some of the growth rate in Tier 3, which would only work to the benefit of existing Tier 3 groups because there is increasing pressure and competition for those funds. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? I can argue both sides of this, frankly. I actually think for an organization, a nonprofit organization, to come forward and apply for and receive taxpayer funding, we shouldn't just willy-nilly give that money out to any, Johnny-come-lately, fly-by-night sort of group. We should insist that they have some sort of demonstrated history of providing the services and the programming in the community. They should have some sort of roots in the community. They should have a constituency. They should have an audience in their community. And saying that you must be in existence for 5 years before you're eligible is one way of ensuring that, yes, indeed, this is an organization that's worthy of the receipt of taxpayer funds to service its existing constituency and its existing audiences. A different way of looking at this is to say that one of the goals of the SCFD is to produce a vibrant and flourishing arts community where we have new organizations coming forward, perhaps with new media, new messages, new forms of art, new forms of entertainment, new enlightenment to offer their community. And to what extent should taxpayer funding be used in an incubator fashion to create more innovation, to bring more diversity and new forms of expression, new forms of art that maybe we don't like at first, but maybe it's important for us to see or hear or experience? Which is the right role for the district and for taxpayer funding? To fund established organizations with constituencies and audiences, or to fund innovation and new and challenging things that perhaps haven't existed before? I don't think there's a right answer to this question, but there is a finite limit to the amount of taxpayer dollars that the SCFD resources have to offer. And for that reason, the task force, I think, has chosen to increase this requirement to 5 years for very valid reasons. I will be voting no on the amendment, but I wanted to spend some time just explaining what I think are the merits of both sides of this issue.
Is there any further discussion on L0? Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this amendment because, one, I think it's some of those organizations that are starting out, like any new entrepreneur in this state, whether they're a creative industry or whether they're a technological industry, we should be supporting those folks. They are not fly-by-nights and Johnny-come-latelys if they have been able to establish themselves for a full 3 years. This makes it more fair to those who are trying to blossom, graduating out of, as we heard from this gentleman I mentioned earlier today, graduating from college and then developing his own nonprofit and helping the community in the arts. Those are the kinds of activities that we want to encourage. So I would ask for an aye vote, and this will at least help those smaller, new budding creative industries.
Is there any further discussion? Senator President Cadman.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to ask for a no vote. Part of the process of this has been now decades of learning what works and what doesn't work, and obviously this came through the collaboration, which I understand started almost 4 years ago. Sustainability is the goal, making sure that if you're investing in some of these organizations that they are around to reinvest that investment back into the community. And with hundreds of these Tier 3 organizations no longer being in existence, obviously that goal is not being met. The whole point of this is to make sure they're sustainable. That doesn't mean they're fly-by-night. I wouldn't use that word, but if they're not part of that sustainability model, then we're kind of diluting the entire effect of this and the goal of this, which came out through that multi-year collaboration. Would ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would ask for a yes vote on the amendment. In fact, I think it doesn't go far enough. I would prefer to see a 2-year or even a 1-year opportunity for budding new organizations to get the support when they need it the most at their very birth, at least some, to have some opportunity. So my question is, if Popsicle were just a cub, would he get the support needed? So with that, I would ask for your support for this amendment.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L003. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. No. The noes have it, and the amendment fails.
Loud doesn't mean he has more votes.
Senator Jones.
So thank you, Madam Chair. I want to be crystal clear. I know how this place works sometimes. I am fully in support of this entity and what it's done for our arts in the metro area. I just think it needs to have a more fair balance to it and to who participates in this and the funding. I remember back to when that bear appeared on scene and people walked around with pennies pinned to their lapels using hot glue, all the way back. So this is a great idea, but I ask for a no vote today. We need to have a fair funding formula, and I realize that if we don't pass a bill, it's worse, but I have hope that we come to a fair place.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 16. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
February 24, 2016, Mr. President, your committee to hold brings and reports under consideration the following task bills being second reading thereof makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 34 is amended, Senate Bill 80 is amended, Senate Bill 16 passed on second reading in order to gross place the counter for third reading and final passage.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. And I already said that, so I move for the adoption of the report.
You have heard the motion and the reason why twice. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Senate Bill 34 is amended, Senate Bill 80 is amended, Senate Bill 16 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Committee reports.
February 23, 2016, Committee on Local Government. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends following House Bill 1012 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 23, 2016, Mr. President, the Committee on Local Government has had under consideration has had hearing on following appointment. Recommends the appointment be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Member of the State Housing Board for term expiring January 31, 2020. Britta E.M. Fisher of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, serves as a member from the 7th Congressional District and as an unaffiliated reappointed.
Message from the House.
February 24, 2016, Mr. President, the House has postponed indefinitely Senate Bill 39. The bill is returned herewith.
Signing of bills.
February 19, 2016, the President signed Senate Joint Resolution 7. The President signed Senate Joint Memorials 4, Senate Joint Resolutions 8 and 9. The President signed House Bills 1018, 1044, and House Joint Resolution 1008.
Message from the House.
February 24, 2016, Mr. President, the House has voted to concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 1240 and has repassed the bills as so amended.
Announcements. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we have with us today in the chamber, we have members of the Chronic Care Collaborative. It is the Chronic Care Collaborative Day at the Capitol, and I have a tribute for them. The chronic disease is recognized as the leading cause of disability and death in the United States, accounting for 7 out of 10 deaths every year, such as Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, arthritis, heart disease, stroke, cancers, diabetes. And many of these are preventable costs that we could be working on, and this group has been working on healthcare reform to make sure that it is effective, it's less costly, and we are doing right by the patients at the same time. Excuse me. Of the top 1% that Medicaid users, 8 out of the 10 have at least 3 of these conditions, and 6 out of the 10 have 5 or more chronic conditions. So preventing and treating chronic disease is an important public health initiative and will improve the quality of life for Coloradans affected by these conditions, and reduce Medicaid costs at the same time. So the tribute is the Senate of the Colorado Legislature convened in the second regular session of the 70th General Assembly, hereby extends heartiest congratulations and commendations to the Chronic Care Collaborative. The Colorado State Senate honors the work of the Chronic Care Collaborative and its 34 member organizations for their continued work since 2007. The 1.2 million Coloradans living with chronic conditions are well served by your continued advocacy. On request of Senator Linda Newell, given this 24th day of February 2016, State Capitol, Denver, Colorado, Bill L. Cadman, President of the Senate. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
Colleagues, please help us recognize them. Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, just a reminder, there are lists, sign-up sheets for the blood drive on either side of the chamber, so don't forget if you'd like to give blood for Trooper Van Sant's wife. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, there is a reception tonight. First time, I think, this session, there'll actually be a legislative reception. We have dozens and dozens of these. But please be aware that the NAIOP, Commercial Real Estate Development Association, International Council of Shopping Centers, ICSC, and the Colorado Apartment Association, CCA, will be hosting a legislative reception this evening at the U Club. This will be 5 to 7 p.m. and ask you to please stop by the University Club during that time to visit with those folks who are here to represent their industries.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. I asked for this because yesterday the state of Colorado lost a real champion for many things, most well known for his efforts with defense of life, and that was, it's actually reflected in the front page of the Colorado Springs Gazette today. It says, "Many grieve the loss of Father Bill." Father Bill Carmody died after a long battle with cancer. He was no stranger to anyone here and was always an encouragement and a smile, regardless of what your perspective was. He was a man of encouragement, and he was a staunch defender of life. I ask that we might have a moment of silence for the passing of Father Bill Carmody, and would inform you also that down in the Springs at the church that he, I believe, established, helped establish, there will be some services the weekend following March 4th and 5th. But if you'd please join me in a moment of silence and prayer with for Father Bill Carmody. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, colleagues. Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Tomorrow at noon, the nonpartisan Colorado Health Institute is hosting one of their lunch and learns, and that will be from noon to 1 o'clock tomorrow, Thursday, in the Senate Committee Room 356. Lunch will be provided. The topics that they will be addressing tomorrow include the financial sustainability of Connect for Health Colorado, rising insurance costs, and implications of the state's decision to expand Medicaid eligibility. Those are all lively topics in our chamber. I would encourage folks to attend the Lunch and Learn tomorrow at noon in SCR 356. Thank you.
Senator Kurt.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as we all know, over the next 10 years, more than 42,000 new healthcare practitioners and 26,000 in healthcare support will be needed to supplement our healthcare system here in Colorado. Our health and wellness economic cluster is a key focus of the state's economic development strategy, and therefore is a key priority for Metro State University at Denver. MSU Denver is helping Colorado provide workforce-ready health professionals to meet the needs of Colorado's fastest-growing economic sectors. Please join President Stephen Jordan, students and faculty, to learn more about Metro State University Denver's role in the health professions workforce pipeline. They are having a caucus today from noon to 1 p.m. We are all invited. The only downside is that it is downstairs in the House Committee Rooms 111. See you there.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to invite you tonight to the celebration of an inclusive Colorado. This will be held at the Carr Center, honoring former Governor Ralph Carr and current Governor John Hickenlooper. And this is an event to recognize Colorado's history of acceptance in times of fear and misunderstanding from both Republican and Democratic leadership. From 4:30 to 5:30, encourage you to join us. And one other invitation that you received on your desk, that is for the Colorado Cancer Caucus that will be held tomorrow at noon, and it will be in the, do you want me to finish it? Okay. And it will be in the Ledge Services Building, LSBB. Lunch will be served, but please RSVP. Again, this is the Cancer Caucus that has started this year. Thank you.
Further announcements? Majority Leader Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. One more announcement, colleagues, just to get you in preparation for tomorrow. I wanted to let you all know that the property and casualty insurance folks will be in the building all day tomorrow. Their activities start before we gavel in the morning, so you might look for them and constituents from that industry over in the old Supreme Court chambers starting tomorrow morning and throughout the day. And in the absence of any further announcements, colleagues, we are going to recess this morning as we're waiting for something to come over from the House. You do not have to come back, however. So with that, Mr. President, I move that the Senate recess to 1 p.m. this afternoon.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will stand in recess until 1 p.m.